Hello, everyone. This is Piers Ridyard, CEO of Radix, and we have with us this very special person, Dan.
Apparently, the founder.
It's been a long time since we've been on a video together, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has actually. Wow, a real long time. I mean, we've both been busybodies.
Both been busy. You've been hidden away in your coding cave, working your magic, and I've been doing had surgery recently, but before that, seems to be doing endless AMAs and things like that on social media, which is great. Like, it's amazing to see how much the Radix community has been growing. Like, there are over 84,000 Twitter followers now.
I know, it's crazy. It's growing quick as well, which is more surprising than the number that it is. It's like 500 a day or something crazy. It's mental.
Yeah. The team has done like this incredible job of creating this machine that clearly like has resonance, because it's been great, and also recently had the unlock.
Yes, very decisive, very controversial, but I think that went really well. A lot better than I thought as well, and didn't even phase. Just one big dip, and that was that. So very surprised.
Yeah, it was super. For me, super like. Well, I'm trying to think of there's a word, edifying, super edifying. It was very edifying. You put something out. It was a community. It was originally a community suggestion. We had some trepidation, but we decided to do that survey. That came back really positive, and
big debate.
Yeah.
Go to bed, wake up, 1,000 messages. Now I've got to pick through these to see if there's anything that I need to answer, because obviously, like, we tried to stay out of that conversation, right? We didn't raise the issue, and so we were kind of just playing referee, I guess, trying to keep the peace and just offer some calming words, maybe here.
I have to say that, like, massive kudos to the community mods, because that was mostly them.
Yeah, it was all on that.
So I mean, I wouldn't say that we even did that. We just sort of let the debate happen, and anyway, like, thank you everyone who spent all of the time to get involved in the debate, and thank you to everyone for making sure that it was successful afterwards. But I don't think anyone's heard from you on just the mainnet launch. Like, what like now that's happened. It's a bit in the past. What's your sort of view on that? How do you see that the team has worked towards that as well?
Yeah, I actually I did speak about it on Twitch. I think maybe about a week after when I did my first transactions. I think it was.
I remember you threw some shade at me in that as well.
I did throw you a little bit of shade. Yeah, it has to be done from time to time, But I mean, it's been a few months now, and nothing's set on fire. Nothing's blown up, which is I mean, a massive achievement, right? Huge achievement to build that in the time that we did. I mean, I say we. I mean, I didn't have a lot of input on the building of the mainnet, of course, but from huge effort, it's running well. It's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm actually blown away by the amount that's staked. I never thought that we'd have that much staked. So for a new small network as well, it's like that's a huge security metric, which should be very confidence inspiring for people that are using the network. I mean, obviously we've had a few issues here and there, but this is a big, complicated thing, right? But we get good bug feedback from the community. The team reacted to them quickly. Things are being improved, little optimizations, little improvements. So, I mean, amazing, right? Like, who would have thought that it would go that smooth?
Yeah.
Like for the first week, I was waking up every morning in sweats, frantically checking for, oh shit, it's died. But it hasn't. So, I mean,
I don't think people appreciate, like, a 100% uptime system is is just such a difficult thing to build. Just like talking traditional systems
like even in this space, right?
Right.
I mean, we're a few months in, and a lot of projects have had downtime issues.
Right.
Even if they were
Solana keeps stopping.
Even if they were just small downtime issues within the first few months, it kind of happens. Even Bitcoin in the early days had issues, right? It wasn't 100% uptime. The difference then, of course, is Satoshi had the privilege of a very small community that weren't super critical, and nobody cared about losing Bitcoins because they weren't worth very much. So the pressures.
I mean, I'm not sure that it was they weren't critical. There was certainly some critics like Dan
less critical because the tokens were worth like the cents of cents. So it was like, I suppose it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But so to have 100% uptime is quite an achievement. And any form of this technology, right? If you're building it from scratch, even if it's just a power blockchain, right? That you've got blueprints for, and how it works, and it's well researched. Developing that from scratch, even just a simple power blockchain that just does transactions and nothing more, it's a massive amount of work to do it from scratch.
Yeah.
It's just so many moving parts, right? You've got all your peripherals, networking, all that kind of stuff. So to cut all that code, test it, get it out the door, and for it not to have some major teething issues by this point is a real testament.
We certainly had a few, like sort of things like it being difficult to access the archive nodes sometimes from the point of view of wallet users. But like
get that though, right? Like critical issues.
But nothing at like consensus level, nothing that would create security issues. And like I just checked, we're at like over 1.5 billion XRD staked, which at current market value is almost $200 million. Wow. Like $200 million of security on the network is
20% of market cap back in the network.
Yeah.
Right now, which is, that's a high metric, right? Usually it's between 5 and 10%.
Yeah. Super great. So like massive kudos to that. So what's coming next? What's the roadmap?
So we've obviously we've got Olympia, right? Mm-hmm. Then we've got Alexandria at the end of the year, which is kind of a test run for some of the crypto stuff, be able to build things. Then we've got Babylon next year, which is the actual crypto release, where then we can really start to move in terms of the buildability narrative and develop.
It's when you can actually compile and run DeFi applications on top of Radix. So you'll be able to compile off Ledger with Alexandria, but you won't be able to compile on Ledger until Babylon.
So it's kind of like Alexandria is kind of like low fat, and Babylon is full fat, if you want to think of it, right? And so like Alexandria as well, it's a good test framework so that people can start to get familiar with some of the ideas behind crypto and the finite state machine and how you build on that and stuff, and just start to get familiar with some of the concepts and things as well, before actually moving to full fat version, which is Babylon, and you can actually deploy and compile and do all the really cool build stuff there. So Babylon 2022, and then in 2023 we've got Xi'an, which is obviously our scalability iteration milestone, so that we can then run DeFi at global scale and onboard everybody.
Which actually leads me on to my next question, which is like, what are you doing? Like, what's your day like? Because a lot of communities, there's been a few questions in the community. Like, we don't see Dan committing on GitHub. We don't see Dan in the bit like in the early days of Radix, you literally built everything. Right, you built the wallet client, you built the node runner client, you built the consensus, you built the networking layer. Like you top to bottom, just of a weekend, just went.
It was a form of self-punishment, I think, building all that. Well, I mean, so if, for number one, you're looking at the wrong GitHub. right? So the stuff that I work on is a separate GitHub for all the kind of the Radix lab stuff, right? All the research. So I do actually do commits from time to time. And what I'm working on mainly these days is to just ensure that the roadmap can be delivered, and that any decisions or technological issues or choices are made, basically catch the bullets of potential speed humps later on. Because, I mean, we've got a really competent team for building things, right? We know that. We've just been talking about it, right? Building stuff, me committing to those build things wouldn't, I mean, it adds value, but it doesn't add value in maybe the right place, right? And my confidence level in the team to be able to build the stuff that they need to build, it's unmatched, right? It's top. So, but where I think I work best is analyzing these problems and coming up with solutions, right? Like there are other members on the team that are good at doing that as well, but that's what I enjoy doing too. And obviously I have the privilege of founder, so I can kind of choose where I want to be to some degree. And that's really what gives me a buzz to figure out these problems, solutions, look at what things need to be solved, where can I make improvements in things, how can I improve Cerberus, how can I improve the consensus, the Sybil, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my role is to look slightly ahead of the team, and to at least pick up any potential issues so that we can discuss them, we can find solutions for them, etc., etc. And the kind of platform for which I'm doing that is Cassandra, as I'm sure everybody's aware of. And that's like a implementation of what Xi'an may look like, but with all the fundamental kind of properties and features that Xi'an would require, like atomicity between cross shards, and how do you get this cross shard communication to work, and how do state transition happen, how do nodes within a validator set figure out what's potentially going to be happening in another shard that they don't have full access to data with, and all this kind of stuff, right? And it's looking at novel concepts such as like zero knowledge proofs and threshold vote signatures and BLS and all this kind of stuff. How do you get all these things and put them together? So even if you're sure that what you're trying to build is possible, you still need to figure out, okay, what's the best way for all these pieces to get together? I know I need this, and all these things. What is the most optimal way for these things to get together that give us the best implementation? So that's what Cassandra is. And obviously been working on that now for coming up to maybe a year. It started off as the Flexathon, remember, on my vacation last year in November, and then it very quickly showed a lot of promise to actually this could be a real decent kind of test framework to implement a kind of precursor test network for Xi'an to some degree, and figure out what some of these bits and pieces are that we're going to need.
It's been an interesting development of this working arrangement, because there was definitely points previously in the Radix's history where the build, the sort of production system and the research shared the same repo, right? And you would be changing things, and you go and change things at the consensus layer, or you go and change things in the state model, and then this would have this rippling effect on how the APIs worked, and how you built web applications against it, and how you did the services stack and all of that stuff. And it kept slowing us down. I can remember certain periods where you were just pulling insane all-nighters to try and get this new piece in, and then there was this this carnage that was created afterwards. And so I think we finally realized that the best way was
to just stick Dan in a room on his own and just let him run wild in that room as much as he likes, and then when he's figured out all the stuff, then he can go and bother the team with it. Right. It's a much better working arrangement. And one of the problems then was a lot of the team were quite recent. Up until that point, it was largely me on my own doing a lot of this stuff, small team, community and stuff. And so there was definitely a kind of conflict of working practice where I'd been so used to just being able to change anything and not worry about it, and not having consequences because I knew the full stack, to then I changed something and then I get a million messages of, why have you changed this? It's broken all these things. It's like, oh, oops, sorry. So yeah, separating those two tracks has definitely been a good idea for sure. Because I can try out wacky shit. Right? I wake up one morning and have a crazy idea. I can go and try it, and it doesn't piss everybody else off. So that's good. But then it also means that I can be a little bit gung-ho as well, and I can make big changes, and I can move fast on something. Right, like some of the demos I've shown with Cassandra. I probably couldn't have done some of them if I had to consider, team dependencies on me and stuff. So
no way.
Right.
Well, you could, but I think that they would hunt you down and beat you to death with baseball bats.
Stuck in a full 5-hour team meet session explaining what the hell it just did and what does it do and how does it do it. So yeah, let's figure all that stuff out first and then bring the team in. Right? I mean, the team have got plenty to do. So
and who do you have to help you with this theory?
So mainly, I do mainly keep the team away from most of this stuff. Occasionally, I have some conversations where necessary, like with the state model. Some of the state model stuff I'm working on in Cassandra has direct a positive impact on what's happening with Scripto. Things that we need to think about moving forward, like for Xi'an and stuff. And have you considered how you might want to deal with this kind of state transition that this kind of use case might do? I'm starting to hit some of them, where on some occasions maybe the Scripto team isn't quite there yet, because I can move a little bit faster, because I don't have to do it super properly, let's say, right? I can just experiment with things. So largely it's just kind of me in the cave, and then I also have weekly calls with Professor Sadogi from University of California. And some of his like team regularly come on the call. Sometimes it's just me and him. Sometimes it's me and some of his postgrads, some of his undergrads. He's
postdocs.
Postdocs. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, they earn those titles. They're doctors.
Otherwise, when I have a call on Thursday, I'm sorry, my bad. Yes. So yeah, I mean, he's got quite a big diverse team over there.
Yeah. So how many is it in total?
I forget the number. I think it's around 20 or so, maybe
like 20 PhDs of computer science and postdocs of computer science.
Yeah, some of them are working on different things. So I don't have access to all of them.
Right.
Some of them are working on other particular projects that just aren't relevant whatsoever. But I've regularly met with maybe 5 or 6 of them. So
it's a standing call every week, right?
Every week,
every week, you guys do a deep dive on the current theory as like a checkpoint on.
Yeah, and like sometimes we discuss, emerging theories that have popped up, or some new consensus paper that's interesting, and maybe there's some interesting bits and pieces. Sometimes we'll just have an hour discussion about some technology or some paper that's been published, or sometimes we'll just discuss around interesting use cases that are maybe interesting. And so, I mean, we do cover quite a broad spectrum. It's not just all about Cerberus and Radix consensus. And those are the conversations a lot of the time do actually lead to some things going into what I'm working on to try some stuff out. So yeah, it's really cool. They're a very valuable resource for me. And it's, it also gives me a bit of a reality check on some things that I'm not, or I may be crazy, right? Depending on what idea.
I mean, you're definitely crazy. I think that's already been established.
It'll never work. It's like, hold that thought, and then the next week it's like, yeah, you were right. But then sometimes it's the other way around, right? Sometimes it's like, this will work. No, it won't. It works.
It had, like, for the times that I've been present at calls, like the thing that I always think is amazing to see is, I would call you an intuitive thinker, right? You what you do is you go and read. You're like an avid reader. You go and read everything, and it's sort of like polymath in how you approach it. Like you're happy to read books on economics as much as you are on like mathematics, as much as you are on consensus theory and computer science and sort of the latest research and stuff like that. So you're constantly like bringing in knowledge. And then what you do is you intuit things. You kind of go, I think a system would work like this. But when someone goes, well, like, describe that to me formally, you find that quite difficult, right? Like in a complete formal sense, because you're not going, well, like, how do I write a mathematical argument for this? You're going, well, based on all of this information that I've inhaled, I have this intuition that this is how a system would work best. And what has been great to see with your work with Professor Professor Mo and the team has been this sort of like counterbalance where you like come out with a load of this intuition stuff and some implementation work that sort of proves your intuition, and they'll go, oh, that's that theory from this guy, like here's the formal proof for it, and you'll be like, oh, cool. I remember reading that paper. Like
or sometimes as well, it's like, I know it works, right? I'm up here, I just know it works, but putting it down formally with words is like, I hate words. Like, just can I not just code this, right? Like code is my words, right? So whenever I have to craft a paper, it's an arduous task for me. It's exhausting because it's not so much the mathematical notations that cause me issue. It's explaining the thing, because I get frustrated. It's like, I know it. I like, and you should know it too, because it's obvious. It's like, yeah, but you still got to put the words down, right? Unless you tell people, it's not going to be obvious. And so, yeah, I do find that part of the work maybe difficult. And so the UCD guys are definitely a good counterbalance to that, because they make me think about things. And when I'm writing stuff and things, it's like, you do it with this discipline, right? You got that going up there, great, but you do it like this.
Right. And like, and then you have people like Jellings, is that his name?
Yelling, yeah.
Yelling, or our own Matthew Hine, who just seem to be able to produce like content of an afternoon that you're like, that would take me a month to write.
It's like I'm currently working on 3 papers, right? And I know I'm making good progress on them from my own kind of benchmark, right? It's like, I think I started the first one in July, and all 3 of them are almost kind of first draft, which that's fast, right? For me, that's fast. But my God, has it been exhausting. But then, I'll look at other guys, and it's like, paper this week, paper next week, paper this week, and it's like, screw you.
And like Matthew Hine, but more than anyone else I've ever met, like we'll have a discussion. He'll be like, "Oh, I'll just write something up," and what you'll get is like 30 pages that you did of an afternoon, and it's like tightly argued and
it's not just a word salad. It's like, it's coherent and like very, very well put together. And it's like, how do you do that? But then in the same way, right? It's like, my way of doing that is code, right?
Yes.
My words to put together something formal and coherent and make sense is code, right? So, I can code what math writes in an afternoon.
Yes. Yeah. And no, absolutely. It's the tool that you use to express
when you're
yourself.
on the other side of the fence, it's just frustrating. Like, I've got to write something. Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to go home. I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's the tool that you use to express yourself. And there's no such thing as the wrong tool, really. Like, some people can be like, well, the only tool for expressing yourself is mathematics because that's the formal way of, and it's like, yeah, sure, fine, but the thing is it like the process of building the thing is the process of thinking, and sometimes you just need the most fluent language in which you speak to be able to think.
The issue with that statement, right, is that like the most fluent thing is mathematics. Sure.
No, not fluent. The most correct.
The most correct. Sorry, right? Yeah, great, cool. But people's brains don't think in mathematics, right? Even the most distinguished professor in the world doesn't think about everything in numbers. He thinks about it in words.
Right.
And so even though it is the most correct way, if I just gave you a bunch of equations with no context and said, okay, tell me what that does, those very same people that are saying that's the most correct way would be like, I have no clue what this does. Oh, because words to explain it.
Right.
So yeah, I don't like words. The only words I'm good at is profanities when the code doesn't work. I could give you an ABC of profanities.
Cool. So like I love this expression that you use, which is like you're running ahead of the team to catch the bullets before we get there. In my mind, I kind of the analogy I have is like when you're building a car, one of the first things that you start with is the design of the car itself, like the engine and the drivetrain and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you'll design a car around an engine, but it's much. Sorry, it depends on the car, right? But a lot of the time you start and so the process of like defining the image that you want the car to define for the marketplace, and then going and doing the wind tunnel testing and all of that kind of stuff. That's done by a very small team, right? Yeah. Often there is a person who's responsible for the design.
Yeah.
And then from there, it then goes to a bigger and a bigger team, and eventually it goes to a freaking huge team because you're mass manufacturing something. And I sort of think of it in this way. You're to take from the fashion world, right? You are the head of Chanel, or to take from Ferrari, you are the head designer of Ferrari or whatever, who is going, well, here's what I think the shape of this is going to be, and then that gets passed back to the team, and it becomes it goes from concept to proving, from proving to architecture, from architecture to implementation, and then implementation to integration, because we already have a public ledger up and running. And it's such an important role, but it's also such an isolated role.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which is I mean, sometimes I can be here at the office and not speak to anybody for 3 or 4 days, right? Especially over like bank holiday weekends and stuff. You know, everyone's on holiday, it's weekend, they're taking a nice long weekend, and I'll be here working on something, and it's usually better than it is bad, because then there's no distractions and I can just get into stuff, right? But then sometimes you have those moments of, you know, you come up with some idea, or you're implementing something and something's maybe not quite working right, or there's something that's just a little bit off, and it's like, shit, I could do with a second opinion here. But either, you know, everybody's busy, which is fine. I don't want to disturb everybody with my stuff, or there's just nobody around, or it's the weekend or whatever. But I mean, generally I like that way of working. I'm not really a people person as such, so you know, it's probably for the best if I just stay out of everybody's way.
That's not true, Dan. Like, you always say that you think that you're not a people person. I think that you're one of the like most humble and friendly people that I've ever met in this sector, who's just willing to listen to other people and like very happy just to have a conversation. You never bash people over the head with your intellect.
No, I suppose, okay, yeah, fair enough. I suppose saying I'm not a people person is probably wrong. I like being alone, let's put it that way.
Right. You work well alone. Yeah. And I think that we're now at the point that we have the blessing of, you know, sort of decent funding, a great community, and a large enough team that you're no longer that piece that has to be everywhere. You know, the razor blade.
Exhausting. Like having to wear 4 different hats at various points in the day. You know, God, that was hard work, right? It's like, but then, you know, you kind of move and delegate, and you find people that can take those roles, and then you can settle where you want to be, right? Which is like that's probably one of the hardest things about starting a company, right, is that at the beginning you're every role, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I was just going for a job interview somewhere, I can pick what role I want and I get that job and that's my role, right? But then when you start a company, that doesn't come for a long time, right? You've got all these other roles that you have to fulfill, and the thing that you really want to do is usually the last thing you actually get to be doing in your workday, right? And so yeah, to like finally progress into I can just do what I'm passionate about, what I'm best at, is definitely good to be able to just do that. You know, I'm going to worry about a lot of the other stuff. You know, anything goes wrong, somebody will let me know. But generally, it's taken care of. Great, suits me fine. Right, if I'm needed, somebody will come and get me.
Which is the exact opposite role of a CEO.
I mean, yeah, you know what I mean, right? It's
no, but as in like in terms of what you've basically just described my day to day, right? Which is that like there's always something to be doing with someone. I think my whole day is spent like in calls with everyone, spending time one-to-ones with the team, spending time with group conversations, and just like I often feel a little bit like sometimes like what's it called, the person who sits at the head of a rowing boat and like drums the tempo. I can't remember.
Yeah
right. I'm like I'm just trying to keep everyone rowing in the same direction at the same time as like working out what the direction the ship should be sailing at, and that just, and you know, the preparation for Alexandra is a perfect example for that. You know, we've got this event coming up, which will either be on the 12th or the 19th of November, which you guys should save the date for. And then it's going to be the actual, you know, the preview and then the launch of Scripto, which I am so excited about, as well as all of the other stuff, like, you know, public speaking. I'm speaking at Token 2049 in October in London. We've got a bunch of like
2049. Where did the past 28 years just?
I know, right? Token 2049. I don't know why it was called that. I actually asked the organizer once, and he said something about something, but I forget. But it's a great conference. I love it. I think it's great. There's a lot of good speakers there. I think there's like I will be one of the speakers. So
very good.
But yeah, I think that, you know, just to answer the question of what I'm doing, most of my time is spent equally split between internal functions of making sure that we're doing what we need to be doing, building the team to where it needs to be for our next stage of growth, and interacting with sort of the community, VCs, information providers, public speaking, AMAs, all that kind of stuff. I sort of have to be everywhere all of the time.
All the people-y stuff that I would rather not do.
All of the people-y stuff. And like it's funny because I ebb and flow. Sometimes I'm like, I love people stuff. People stuff's amazing, and then sometimes I'm just like, just leave me alone.
Adam referred to me a couple of weeks ago as the mythical creature that pops up occasionally. And nobody knows when the mythical creature is going to pop up, but when it does, everybody's very happy to see it for that split second, and then it disappears again. Right. So yeah. That's I think
you're basically Nessie.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm no pictures. Oh.
No pictures. Cool. I think we'll wrap it up because we've been sort of over half an hour. But yeah, I think we should try and do this a bit more frequently. Maybe have a couple of calls more regularly, just you and me chatting about stuff, because there's so much to what's happening that doesn't, you know, so many unsung heroes, so many interesting things that are happening at Radix, that it would be great to do this more regularly. But yeah.
I mean, we can always tag it on the end of one of our Tuesday meetings, right? Occasionally.
Yeah.
Then we're both here, right? So we just do the Tuesday meet, and then once that finishes, just, you know, do one of these every now and then.
That's not a bad idea. Okay. To everyone who's watching, thank you so much for watching. And from me, goodbye.
And from the mythical creature, I'll see you at some point, not sure when. Bye.